2022 NBA season officially got underway last night with two star-studded matchups between what should be some of the best teams in the league this year. The night began with the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks battling the Brooklyn Nets, and that game was then followed by the retooled Los Angeles Lakers facing off against Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Of course, it's just one game out of 82 for these teams, but that doesn't mean there aren't important things to take away from the first action of the season, and this brings us to the topic of today's video. Today, we'll be discussing 5 things that we learned from the opening night of games that will be important to continually monitor as the season progresses. Before we start though, it turns out about 51% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first thing we learned from last night's games is that the Milwaukee Bucks are not experiencing any championship hangover. When a team wins the championship in the NBA, it's pretty interesting to see how they come out the next year, because winning the finals is the ultimate goal for every player in the league, and sometimes when players and teams finally achieve that goal, they feel satisfied and aren't as hungry as they were before. We even saw it with the Los Angeles Lakers last season, because even though injuries hampered them late in the year, they definitely didn't look very sharp early on in the season when they were healthy either. For the Bucks though, this is not the case. The Bucks may have won the finals last season, but based on how many media members and fans are treating them, you would never guess it, and the way those same people prop up the Nets so hard has probably given the Bucks a chip on their shoulder to prove that they're still the team to beat in the East. Giannis Antetokounmpo looks ready to make another run at the MVP award, the team looks to be super deep with newcomer Grayson Allen and youngster Jordan Nwora looking like a prime breakout candidate for them, and all in all their combination of chemistry and talent gives them an edge over most other teams. The next thing that we learned from last night's opening night of games in the season is that the Brooklyn Nets are not completely unbeatable without Kyrie Irving. The Kyrie Irving situation has made things in Brooklyn a bit awkward, but in his absence, most people around the league still viewed the Nets as one of the heavy favorites to win the championship. The duo of James Harden and Kevin Durant is as talented as any duo the league has to offer. They made very strong moves around the margins this offseason, bringing in players like Patty Mills, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Paul Millsap amongst others, and with all of these big names of quality, most figured that they would still have more than enough to dominate. After last night though, it's clear that they still have a lot of work to do after losing by 23 points. The reality is that a lot of the additions that they made are players far past their primes, as Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Paul Millsap barely gave them anything. And while Patty Mills was unbelievable providing the exact source of shooting they hoped he would, it just simply wasn't enough. Harden and Durant combined for 52 points, and Mills knocked down 7 threes off the bench, but outside of Patty Mills, they only got 4 other bench points total. Of course, it is just one game against the reigning champs, and we're not going to overreact too hard because they are still a very, very good team. But you also can't just ignore some of these worrying signs. The next important lesson we learned from the opening night of games that may have been the most glaring of all is that Russell Westbrook on the Lakers is an extremely weird fit. The game between the Lakers and Warriors last night was interesting to watch play out because the Lakers have been viewed by most as the best team in the West going into the season, and for most of the early part of the game they looked the part, but their big star addition Russell Westbrook was not carrying his weight out there. Russ finished the night scoring 8 points on 4 of 13 shooting, he missed all 4 of his 3-point shots, he only dished out 4 assists, and he just looked confused and lost out there at times, not knowing exactly what he was supposed to be doing. It may be a narrative that has been overblown over the years, but there is just at least a little bit of truth to the fact that when you play with LeBron James, you don't command the ball nearly as much as you may have prior to the team-up, and Westbrook has been one of the most ball-dominant players we've seen in recent memory. Forcing Russ to play more off-ball results in him having to shoot more jumpers, which has never been a strong point of his game, and the Lakers were even running lineups with both Westbrook and Rajon Rondo in the backcourt at the same time, which is even more of a clunky fit, and he just couldn't ever find his groove. It's a tough situation to try to navigate, because the talent can ultimately prevail, but in order to get the best out of Russ, he needs the ball more, but then simultaneously, you don't want to minimize the touches of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They'll be fine more than likely, but figuring this situation out is what will determine whether they're just a playoff team or a legitimate title contender. The next big lesson we learned last night is that the Golden State Warriors' interior defense is a bit of a mess right now. The Warriors stunned the Lakers last night, coming out on top and winning the game, and while there's definitely a lot to celebrate with them, there is one big concern at the moment, and that's their inability to protect the rim. Anthony Davis had a bit of a down season last year, so he was definitely going to come out aggressive, looking to bounce back, but he was getting to his spots with complete ease, and abused the Warriors' undersized defenders all night long on his way to 33 points. Both Davis and LeBron James looked as dominant and spry as ever attacking the basket, and had the Lakers gotten a bit more production from their supporting cast, the outcome may have been different. So even though the Warriors played well and came away with the win, they will likely struggle against other good teams with dominant big men such as Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Juan Toscano Anderson and Draymond Green are only 6'6". Kevon Looney has struggled, and I'm not even that confident that James Wiseman, who was missing from this game, solves much either for them. And finally, the last lesson learned we'll be discussing today is that LeBron James is clearly not done as one of the best players in the league yet. This is the man's 19th season in the NBA, and last night he looked like a player in the middle of his prime. Obviously, it's a long season, and we need to see how he holds up throughout it, because last season he and the Lakers suffered a disappointing first-round exit from the playoffs, and he individually wasn't his normal dominant self, also struggling with injuries here and there. Either way though, it's just crazy to see someone preserve their body this long to stay this good at his age, and we shouldn't take for granted what we're seeing from him at all. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you thought about the games last night. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.